Welcome to the Wise and Happy Life podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern science, and mindfulness, philosophy, and happiness practices blend with neuroscience, compassion, and common sense. Hosted by Bob Martin, meditation mentor, happiness coach, trial lawyer, and entrepreneur. This podcast explores how to live with grace, presence, and purpose in a complex world.
Hey, good people, and welcome to another episode of A Wise and Happy Life. We have a wonderful guest in our studios today, Jessica Nash, and she is going to tell us about how really screwed up the world has become since this son of a gun has come into the Oval Office. And she's had some real experience. Jessica, why don't you say hello to the folks?
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Oh, well, I guess it's a relative question.
Right.
More importantly, how are you doing?
Oh, day by day, navigating unemployment in the South, doing the best we can with what we got.
Yeah. Well, let us know. You were pretty much at the top of your field as a fashion designer, weren't you?
Yep, that's correct. I've spent 16 years in New York. I was working designing private label for most major retailers, Macy's, Lord & Taylor, Saks Fifth Avenue. Most recently, I have, the past 3 years, I was on the wholesale side of the business, which is sort of the way that retail trends are shifting, letting go of independent design teams and leaning more on market vendors. So I was designing for a label called Joseph A., which can be found in major discount stores, TJ Maxx, BJ's, Saks Off Fifth, just to name a few. But now I've moved to Atlanta and looking for a creative opportunity, which has not been an easy feat, but down but not out yet.
Well, I want to go back and unpack something that you just said about the new shift in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So you were designing for a label like Saks at one time, and now you were designing for this Joseph A., and they job out to various stores. So,
yeah,
I mean, most of us think that when we go into a store and we see a label, that thing that we're looking at was specifically made for that store, but surprise, surprise, it's not, huh?
right. That's what they want you to think. The outlet stores are not old product. It's cheaper product at a cheaper price. We did private label. So Joseph A. was the name of the brand. So there's an option for stores like Saks Off Fifth or Ross to come in and buy that label. Or you could buy the product and switch out the label and put your private label. So did private label for Chico's, similar product, but under their label. So when I said the retail shifting that way, it's the market vendors, which is what this is considered, can design 150 styles, and Chico's can buy 10 of those, Ross can buy 40 of those, Saks Off Fifth can buy the same 40 of those. So you'll see a lot of duplication across different stores.
You know, when most of us think about the word design, we think about maybe sketching something on a pad of paper and that's all it is. But I'm imagining that there's a bit more to it than that.
There is a bit more to it than that, but similar to what we started with of, managing the world today with what we got, the design process has kind of suffered and it doesn't have quite the creative flair that it once did. And so, I used to work with teams and collaborating, trend research, what's the new ideas, what are we going after this year, what's something we feel really strong about standing for. Unfortunately, Amazon is a big player out there and everybody wants the product faster, they want it cheaper, and they want it in 2 days. So it's kind of, has companies grasping at straws on how quickly they can get product into stores or online. And at a price that can compete with mega Amazon.
Something you just said reminded me of a fellow that I was asking to do some work, and I think he quoted something that he got from somewhere else, but he said, generally, you can ask, there are three things. There's speed and quality and price.
Yep.
And he said, you can generally get two of those, but if you want them both fast and quality, then you're going to have to pay for it. Or something like that. Have you heard something similar to that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Quality and a price. Typically, you can get the quality or speed, but at a price. Or you get the price that you need and you sacrifice the quality.
Or the speed.
Or the speed.
And talking about speed, one of the things that impacts speed, I imagine, is this thing they call the supply line, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you know about that? And how does that affect things? And I guess tariffs fold into that somewhat too.
Yeah.
So can you talk to that?
It's been an interesting yet brutal year. And, this all started back in April when the tariffs were first announced. And I actually had product that was supposed to be shipping to BJ's, the club store, also the new wave of retail. Come back to that. But it was 36,000 units that was held at the port in China. And every day we were all just waiting for some sort of reprieve because we were responsible for paying for the product once it hit the US, which was at 52% tariff. So it actually was cheaper so for example, every day that the product is late to hit the customer's warehouse, you have to pay a penalty for quantity. So if we were shipping 36,000 units for the first hit that needed to be in their DC in June, it's cheaper to pay the penalty for 36,000 units than to pay the 52% tariff. So I think they said this at the beginning of the summer that
Wait, let me just see. When you talk about a penalty, you're talking about a penalty that you have to pay to the person that you're shipping it to.
Correct. Because when they bought the order, it needed to be in their warehouse at a specific date so that it can go out to their stores and distribution centers that, you need your product on the floor.
So you guys enter into a contract
Mm-hmm.
and you say, we'll give it to you on this day. And if we can't get it to you on that day, then we're going to pay a price every day that it's late.
Mm-hmm.
And you all figured that paying the tariff was so expensive that it was better to wait, hoping that the tariff you'd get some relief from the tariff.
Yep.
You accepted the penalty expense, but then did you ever get any relief from the tariff?
Nope. Well,
it's like a double whammy.
The only relief was it went down slightly to 35%, which is when we brought it in. But still a hit either way.
So did you all hadn't figured that 35% into your cost projection for obtaining the product, I guess, right?
This point, because it was bought last year, but then manufactured this year to ship, it did not have the tariff cost. So anything that, let's say, fall 25, fall 26 product, everything is now priced with the tariff included, which a lot of retailers don't want to accept that price. It's no surprise that things are getting more expensive. Buyers are really adamant about holding the cost of what they've paid prior to the tariffs, and they will not pay it. So that leaves it up to the companies to absorb that cost.
That's not sustainable, it doesn't sound like.
It's not sustainable, and it's pretty wild because they don't want to raise the prices for the consumer, which is essentially what's going to happen or what is happening, because some companies can't afford to absorb that cost. For example, 2 weeks ago, Carter's, the kids' store based in Atlanta, did mass corporate layoffs because of the tariffs specifically and the cost that they have lost. And so it's not sustainable.
So everybody's trying to make some adjustments to the tariffs. You have to pay more to import it, and you pass that along to the wholesaler, distributor. And the distributor is trying to hold the price against the consumer because they know that they raise the prices to the consumer, the amount of product they're going to sell is going to go down, and they'll have to deal with the overage.
Yep.
So it's a lot of, I guess it sounds like it's a lot of guessing and hoping.
It is. It is. And another twist to this is a lot of retailers have decided that they want to move out of China production. So that is, I just saw something this morning about, and it's a big scramble. So as soon as the tariffs hit over 50% in China, everyone was scrambling how to get business out of China, how to move it to a different country, how to get it up and going. And I was watching this video of a furniture factory out of China, how they were setting up in Vietnam and all of the barriers that they are facing. And one, obviously, the language communication, all of the software, all of the machines are in Chinese, and they're trying to get people up and working, but it's not as quick as China. And, I personally don't have a hatred towards China, and I believe that I work in sweaters specifically. They have the best knitting capability, best labor, best quality that other countries don't have. It's not as developed. And so it's not an apples to apples. And you can't just say, I want to be out of China and get the same product. It just doesn't work like that. And so not only are the tariffs created delays, but it's kind of a domino effect that I think a lot of consumers are going to feel this holiday season that are still experiencing delays in getting product out
of China,
out of anywhere.
Yeah. So much of this is stuff that most of us just don't think about. We look at it kind of simplistically, like, okay, this is just a price thing, like China, we're going to have to pay more to import it from China. And then the manufacturers are going to pass it on to the wholesalers, who are going to pass it on to distributors. And eventually it's going to be a tax to the consumer. And that's all we think about. But, you take things to a completely different level. I mean, I just never thought of the idea that all of the machinery to make the stuff in China is in Chinese, and all of the Chinese people that are trained on it. So if you take the machinery out of China, it's not like you're just going to open up a shop, a sweater shop tomorrow. Well, that begs this question. Trump and the administration has been talking about the tariffs in terms of kind of a way of manipulating the manufacturing world to come back to America and establish, factories here. But what you're saying is that's not going to be so easy.
It's not so easy. And again, it's just because he said it or just because you want it doesn't make it happen. If that were the case, then we would have been manufacturing many more things here than we do. We do not have the technology. We do not have the labor. We do not have the capabilities to do what is done in other countries. And it would take years and years and years. And so it's this whole, we're bringing jobs back. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
On this when we were talking about the machinery and things, so this furniture company, this one technician learned 21 of main characters in Chinese that she had to know in the computer programming, and she got one character wrong, and 300 sofas were manufactured incorrectly.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. And as an American, somebody who grew up in America, a good, loving, I love my country, America, it hits me in the heart when you say we, America, we don't have the capability that other countries have, because we think of ourselves as so exceptional and so on top of everything. but that's just not the case, huh?
No, we're light years behind. Light years.
And you've been there, right?
Oh, I've been many a times. I've been to very, very different areas. I've been to Shanghai, Taiwan, Hong Kong, into Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Wuxi, Weihai. I can't even put into words what a factory, even I haven't even visited like the mainland factories, because I will go visit the factories that are manufacturing things for us, but they have a small sample room, which is not even really small. It's huge. But then they own factories out in mainland China, which they will then send the product to be made X 37,000 units of a style. There's just, it's not an easy fix, and it's not a realistic one.
Crazy.
It is really crazy.
Well, you say you can't put it into words, but let me challenge you a little bit. Could you describe for us, what it's like to go into that environment of China? How does it feel differently? How does it look differently? Can you give us an idea of the impressions that you got when you were first seeing the manufacturing world of China?
So let's say I go into a factory on one floor. Say there are 100 knitting machines. They are automatic machines, but each knitting machine has a technician that sits next to each machine, because as these needles are moving back and forth to knit the sweaters, if one needle breaks, the technician has to then go change the needle, pull the thread back through, because if someone isn't monitoring it, it will continue to knit, and it will knit with a hole in it, and then your garment is ruined. And so that is just one portion. And then once a panel is knit, then it goes to the next floor where we have linkers, which this gets really technical, but every floor has different steamers. They have these balloons basically that you pull the garment on, and someone is with lights and someone is just checking the garment for holes. That's all they're doing. And so there's so many different steps. And then it gets steamed, it gets washed, it gets, it's so technical. The washing it's
And that's different than what we do here?
never have I ever seen anything like that here.
Never.
Never.
The multiple floors. Amazing.
I mean,
we used to have a textile industry, especially even here where I live in North Carolina, was known for its textiles, but these are two different animals, huh?
two completely different animals. And this is just for, my product. Are they doing other people's product? Of course. But I'm small potatoes compared to, Amazon and their units. So I can only imagine what those factories look like. And think about a factory for every product in your home. Makeup brushes, pillows, towels. Every factory looks different, but we don't have the skilled workers, nor do I think we have the discipline to want to know or learn.
So, you're saying that there's a worker sitting next to each machine. So even if we had the technology, we couldn't afford that kind of supervision. Am I right?
Right. And you've heard that construction industry is really, really struggling because of ICE, and they are, taking everyone that are on these sites. And so there is a huge labor shortage. And sure, again, you're trying to bring jobs back, but these are jobs that Americans don't want. Yet they still want the house, or they still want this built, but you're going to take the people that are willing and capable to do the job. It's, no one, I don't know any American that's going to say, I'm going to sit next to this knitting machine while it's knitting 27,000 panels. It's, yeah.
That's true. I want to ask you a question, and I don't know if this is part of your expertise, but it's something I'm kind of concerned about. I'll just share with you that I've been to Costa Rica on several occasions. When I first started going down there, we used to see TVs and washing machines and appliances, and they had brand names like General Electric and Westinghouse and all of these American names. But, we haven't paid a lot of attention to Costa Rica, and China did. Matter of fact, China lent them a lot of road making machineries and even built them a soccer stadium in the capital as a gift. Now, all you see in the appliance stores are Chinese brands, and you don't see American brands anymore. So you say, okay, well, they've got the edge on us in terms of, maybe competition for the moment, you think, but we can always go back. But what concerns me is that once that machinery comes over here and it's Chinese, you got to go back to China for the spare parts. So, once they come in and grab a hold of an area, it's very hard to shake that loose. Same thing with the brand. If you've always had General Electric and now you have a Westinghouse thing, you might not have the parts for it.
Right.
Same thing. And what I heard was that now China is swooping in to all of these countries where we have established tariffs, and they've taken away the tariffs to make trade easier so that they're going to come in and compete with us without tariffs. And it bothers me or worries me that by the time we wake up, China will have conquered the world commercially. What do you think? Do you see any of that going on?
I do. But it's also like, what are we doing to put ourselves in a position to challenge that? How are we getting ahead of technology, or how are we getting ahead to position ourselves? It's kind of going back to we're bringing jobs back to America. Okay, so how are we doing that? What are we doing to do that? Just because you want it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right.
Another part of this is with these tariffs, and because everything is coming out of China, sweaters specifically, the yarn is still being made in China because other countries don't have that capability. So the consumer doesn't know that what's baked into the cost is freight for this product, the yarn, to be sent to another country to be made, or it's being knitted in China, but then they say it's finished in Cambodia, but you're paying for all of that transportation freight cost. And so it's counterintuitive.
Yeah. What you're saying then is even if these companies avoid China in order to save on the tariffs, they're still going to get some other cost coming in on the back end because the raw materials are being made in China. Then they have to be shipped to Cambodia. And so the tariff-like prices still remain.
Yeah. So I was actually
Ouch.
at Kohl's and I saw this for the first time. I've never seen this in a label because now you pay attention to everything. Where is it made? Where is it made? And it said, made in China, finished in Thailand.
So what does that mean?
Because Thailand and these countries don't have the capability. So they are knitting the panels. Well, I don't know. Let's say that they're sewing in the labels in Thailand. Is that the loophole? They're sewing in the labels in Thailand and they're shipping it out from there. Is that the loophole to miss the tariff? But you're eating costs because of the freight charges and things going back and forth. And it gets even grittier because, they're sourcing and things are being made in Myanmar and all of these countries that are not equipped or developed. And so really, really, truly think about just a truck of goods going down a dirt road without any lights to these factories to have them sew on the buttons for the cardigan or to, it's crazy.
Yeah, and again, I guess what you're saying makes me think that what we don't think about is that China has been building its industrial capacity for decades. And it didn't come about overnight either,
Right.
And
There's a reason that
so
the iPhones are made there.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
Right. So let me move into something that's maybe a little bit more personal, if you're willing.
Okay.
I know that the tariffs have caused you some personal difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be okay with sharing some of your, the job situation you had? Because look, you're a professional. You were making good money in New York. You were at the top of your field, and now you're, I hate to say it, but now you're in Atlanta and you're looking for work and everybody wants you, but nobody's hiring you.
Right.
Talk to that a little bit.
So I have pivoted into the consulting contract world and doing freelance designs for people, for brands, for different stores. I met this guy. He has a very established dress blouse business out of India, woven, cut and sew knits. And he wanted to get his sweater business back up and running. So I put a proposal together. He signed off on it. We were signed, sealed, delivered. And then the tariffs out of India hit. And so he had to put that on hold because any money that was set aside for the sweater business now had to be used to ship his product out of India that was promised to the stores to be in store September, October, November. So that is one of 3 opportunities that have been put on hold because of these tariffs.
So just to kind of summarize, because I know that you have to go and I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for being with us. But you're saying that on 3 different occasions, you went through the process and wanted to be hired, but your hiring had to be put on hold because direct as a result of the tariffs.
Correct. It's all just a holding pattern. There's no light at the end of the tunnel for when this is going to let up.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for giving us your time and your wisdom today. It's just been fascinating, and it's opened up a whole world of thinking for me and the audience about how complicated these things are, and you can't just come in with a sledgehammer when you need to have a little silver tapper.
Right.
Thanks so much for your time.
You're so welcome. Have a great day.
You too.